Welcome to the Art of Conscious Love Summit 2017. I'm your host, Kuthoomi. I'm passionate and excited to help you develop the skills and awareness needed to have more passion, deep connection, and authentic love in your relationships. Today, I'm excited to welcome Glenn Harrold. Glenn is an author, musician, and experienced clinical hypnotherapist who has helped thousands of clients over a wide range of stress-related problems. He has combined his hypnotherapy skills with an extensive recording knowledge to produce a uniquely effective series of high-quality hypnosis recordings that has sold over 7 million copies and are well established as the UK's best-selling self-help audio titles of all time. Hi, Glenn. Welcome to the summit. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you.
I'm glad to have you here. Great. If we jump into the questions by starting, maybe if you can share something about your personal experience in this path of self-development and, personal love. You can share something about you.
About myself and how I got into this work. Well, originally, when I was younger, I played in a band. I was always a musician, and it was good because before that I'd been a bit of a tearaway. I'd hung around on streets in gangs and got into lots of trouble, and music kind of got me out of that. It took me into a more positive area. And so I played in a band for a number of years. We had a brief taste of success in the UK, and then later on I played in a covers band, and I shared the bill sometimes with stage hypnotists. And it was watching stage hypnotists do their thing that kind of intrigued me. And it fascinated me seeing these guys manipulate audiences and doing that kind of thing. And it showed me the power of hypnosis. And I didn't want to be a stage hypnotist, but I was kind of drawn to it for the healing side of it and the potential to clear patterns of behavior that were dysfunctional. And I had a lot of that, coming from a very dysfunctional home. I had a lot of issues and traumas that I wanted to get over. And suddenly I found this tool that would enable me to do that. And so really that was why I was drawn into it. And from there I did a 2-year diploma with the British School of Clinical Hypnosis in London, and really never looked back. I loved it. I loved it. And I cleared a lot of the things that were holding me back at that point. Did a lot of self-hypnosis, a lot of therapy, a lot of clearing. And once I'd done that, I found that, my, life started to improve in many ways. I started to become more abundant. The relationships I had were better and, clearer and more authentic. And yeah, life started to swing. And, I've been on that, riding that, wave ever since, and it's been a great journey. Right. So yeah, that's really where I got going.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that, Glenn. That brings me into maybe asking you more about what's the importance of healing your family relationships and really like revisiting back into how your system was when you were a kid. A lot of people don't really understand this, and they want to have a healthy relationship or with friends, family, at work, but they haven't really done the work with understanding the family system and what happened to them. So if you can dive more into that, it will be fantastic.
Well, I think for me, I had very dysfunctional relationships with my parents and the household that I grew up in general. Because, my parents were very unclear in themselves. They had a lot of dysfunction. It's that old thing of the cycle. They passed it on, or their parents passed it on to them. They passed it on to me and my brothers. And it was really, I had a lot of problems, a lot of issues. I got kicked out of school when I was 15. I was always in trouble with the police, drugs, drink, classic story really. And it was really, as I said, when I got older that I realized that I had to change myself from within for the world to change and respond differently to me. Because up until that point, I was mixing with the wrong crowd. I was attracting the wrong people into my life. People that were dysfunctional like me. I was basically attracting what I was resonating. And so once I realized that, I started to work on myself on a very deep level. you know, firstly through hypnosis, and then, you know, I spent time in Panama at a shamanic retreat. You know, I experimented. I did some ayahuasca ceremonies that I found very cathartic and clearing and cleansing. And I did a number of therapies, you know, a number of different therapies over the years that all helped me clear a lot of the stuff that I was programmed with, that was helping me to, you know, stopping me from being who I'm supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so really that relationship, as you said earlier, with myself was the key one that I had to start with first. And it was once I started to clear a lot of this dysfunction and build a much more positive relationship with myself, I found that the external world started responding to me more positively. And then I'd attract more positive people into my life, and, you know, became more abundant, and all of those things, felt more creative, more inspired, opportunities came along. And it really is the key element is starting with that relationship with yourself, and, you know, learning to really love and respect yourself, because I didn't know how to do that. I never had that when I was a kid. You know, I was just told I was bad, I was naughty, I was hopeless, rubbish, stupid, you know, so I had all of that to deal with. But I realized later on that was just stuff that was given to me, and I could get rid of it. I could clear it and heal myself a bit. And when I did that, you know, I started to, you know, I did a bit of inner child stuff where I started to love that little boy and respect him, and, you know, nurture him and let him know that he's okay, and that kind of thing. And once I did that, you know, I did start to shine a little bit for the first time. And, you know, people respond to you differently when you've got that, you know, a bit of a light coming through. And so that was the starting point. And I think that's the key for anyone trying to find their way out the woods. You know, if they've got low self-esteem or they're stuck, you know, you can nurture yourself from within. You can start to learn to really love yourself and clear away any negativity, anything that was laid on you by other people with their own issues, and, you know, was not really your stuff. So that's the key to it. And clearing is something I still do to this day. You know, I've done a lot of it over the last 30 years, but it's an ongoing process. There's many layers. You know, I'm under no illusions that I'm sorted. You know, it's an ongoing process. And I think this is the great opportunity we have in life. You know, this life gives us that opportunity just to clear so much of our shadow and the stuff that holds us back and stops us from really shining.
Great. Yeah, I mean, it's good that you mentioned that, you know, because often what we do is we reach out for what we're not getting inside ourselves. So
Yeah.
being able to do the work so we can start taking care of our needs and our nurturing ourselves. It's such a profound and healing journey, rather than trying to get it out, you know, through partners and family or friends.
And that's the mistake. That's a really good point, because, yeah, when you're struggling, you think, well, if I have that, you know, and it can be the material, or if, you know, it's why I got a bit lost in drugs and drink and, you know, sleeping around and all that kind of thing, because you're searching for something to try and fulfill you, fulfill the dysfunction and the hole that you've got inside you. But once you learn to fix the stuff inside and fill that hole with love, then you don't need approval. You don't need material things. You know, you feel good in yourself, and just being, you know, out in the sunshine or being in nature, that can just fulfill you, being in that space, because you're at peace with yourself and the world.
Totally.
That's a really good point.
Great, Glenn. You mentioned a few times dysfunction, you know, and definitely dysfunction is such a big thing. A lot of people don't know what a dysfunctional relationship is. Can you maybe share something about your own experience, and also what you've seen in other people, the people that you work with? What are some of the most common dysfunctional patterns that we have that we don't know?
I think, yeah, I mean, dysfunction for me, I had always had an awareness of my own dysfunction, even though I couldn't always stop it. And the things that were driving me, I was always had a sense that, you know, when I was a very messed up kid and I was taking drugs and doing all the wrong things, I knew it wasn't right. I knew it wasn't who I was supposed to be, but I just didn't know how to get out of it. And but what I see in some people, you know, and even older people, that they have the dysfunction going on, but then they don't have the awareness of it. They just think, oh, life's is bad luck, or, you know, the reason they're overweight is just bad luck or bad health, or, you know, they don't realize that it's within their own power to change. And I think that was my saving grace, you know, that I had that awareness and that self accountability that helped me to motivated me to want to change.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you know, you have to really shine a light on yourself and look at, you know, your own patterns of behavior and the things that you're, you know, why are you struggling? Why is things not working? Why do people respond to you in a certain way that's not favorable? You know, what is it within you that's attracting that? And I think taking responsibility from the first, in the first place, is the key to change. So yeah, that's it. And being honest and being authentic and truthful. And, you know, when I spent time at the Shamanic retreat in Panama a few years ago, we really got into authenticity and, you know, what are your motivations? And, you know, look deep inside yourself for your motivations, because sometimes they're hidden. Sometimes you do things and you justify them, but, you know, what's your real motivation behind those things, you know? And since that time, you know, it really shone a light inside, you know, and I found that ayahuasca did that. You know, it's really very revealing. You know, the shamanic theory is that it's the truth medicine. It shows you the truth of yourself, and it illuminates the shadow. It illuminates the darkness inside you, all the stuff you've got hidden and buried. And, you know, I saw things in those ceremonies that, you know, I didn't realize were there. And having them drawn into my conscious awareness was like a real light bulb moment that made me realize, hang on, you're not as far down the road as maybe you thought you were. You need to, you know, it's a continual process. This clearing thing that everyone needs to do
Mm-hmm.
is an ongoing process. And the more awareness you have of your shadow and the workings of your inner self, the clearer you can become.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the key for everyone, you know, really look deep inside and look at the relationship you've got with yourself, and, you know, and strive for authenticity in everything you do. I mean, that was a great quote from Gandhi, wasn't it? Be authentic in word, deed, and action.
Mm-hmm.
You know, truly authentic. And he was a master of that, you know, even though he was persecuted and oppressed, he lived his truth, you know, and his truth was love and compassion and non-violence, and, you know, fighting oppression with love. You know, he was totally authentic. And so when somebody like him said those things, you believed it, because he was a living example of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing. Once you get that authenticity, people, you know, your words have a truth about them. There's a resonance that people connect with.
Thank you, Glenn. At the beginning, before we started you know, the interview, you mentioned, you know, we talked a little bit about each other, and you mentioned you had social anxiety when you were younger, and I think that's something that affects a lot of people. I do have it, and there's so many people that have it, and, you know, it comes in different ways.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you can share more about, you know, about that specific topic and how that affects in relationships.
Yeah, I mean, for me, social anxiety was a big issue, because I'd always been told as a kid that I was no good, I was hopeless, kicked out of school. You know, I believed that. I was kind of confident when I was with my peers, you know, other little tearaways. I was Jack the Lad, I was bravado, you know, big shoulders, you know, I acted the big man and all that when I was a kid. But when I got to adulthood, I felt very uncomfortable in normal social settings. And, you know, I used to blush a lot, and I found it very difficult to communicate with other adults. And even to a point, I was in a band when I was in my sort of late teens. And if ever we did an interview, I couldn't speak on the microphone. I just couldn't. All the other guys would say their piece to the interviewer, but I clam up. And all I'd say is hello and goodbye. And the other boys in the band used to take the mickey out of me because that's all I could say. And I'd come out and I think, well, you know, I had this frustration. Why couldn't I speak? I didn't understand it. I didn't know why I didn't have a voice. But really, it was just repressed. You know, my throat chakra was completely shut down. I just couldn't speak. But when I got into the clearing, when I started to work on myself and use self-hypnosis to, free myself up, I started to find my voice and I started to be able to communicate with people. And I used to do a little affirmation before I got into hypnosis, actually, because I was so clammed up. I used to say to myself, I always get on well with people. And it may sound very simple, but before I went anywhere, and even if it was into a pub or if it was into a little group or, nothing fancy or important, I would just do this little mantra to myself. I'd say, I always get on well with people. And I kind of reprogram myself to get on well with people, because I'd repeat that over and over again. I'd say it and really mean it, really resonate with it. I'd allow that mantra to go deep. There was no technique to it. It was just something that I devised myself. And I found that really helped me. So when I was in a social setting, I found that I did start to get on with people. And, little by little, I started to build my confidence. I started to feel a little bit better about myself. I started to speak with, honestly, and not worry about being judged. I think that's always the big fear, isn't it, of being judged. And when you don't feel good in yourself, that's quite a big one. So, it was little steps for me, small steps that became bigger steps. And then, later on, I started doing interviews and I could speak and, and I felt confident. And, I did interviews on the biggest radio station in Europe, 7 million people, and I'd speak freely and I'd feel great. But I'd always prepare myself, I'd always visualize before I did anything like that. I'd lay down and I'd meditate and project out a feeling of positivity and, always from my heart as well. I'd visualize putting out a feeling of love and kindness, compassion, and being able to speak freely and naturally. And because if you visualize that beforehand, your mind doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined. Mm-hmm. So it believes you're actually doing it when you're visualizing it. So if you practice that a few times before any time that you've got to speak or you've got to do a presentation or you've got to do an interview, you will prepare yourself in a brilliant way, because by the time you actually get to do it, you'll be in a peak performance state because you will have practiced it a number of times. So that's for me, learning those techniques and really getting into that helped me in so many situations where I would have clammed up in the past if I hadn't done that work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. I see that, you mentioned, of course, your hypnotherapist, you mentioned a lot of visualization. And I think that's fantastic. A lot of times we're so caught up into the story and the drama that we have in our heads. Mm. And we forget that we can actually settle down a little and start seeing ourselves in a better future. That's a fantastic tool. Thank you.
It is. And, just even if you take, 15 or 20 minutes in your day to drop into that meditative state, mm-hmm. You allow the sort of monkey mind to switch off. And they say 20 minutes of meditation in the middle of the day is like a couple of hours sleep at night. Mm-hmm. It can really recharge you and replenish you. And you come out of that state feeling so much more positive, more creative, more energized, and, mentally relaxed. So that's even if you only have 20 minutes in your lunch hour, it's a really good thing to do in the middle of the day. And if ever I've got a busy day or I've got something big to do, I always do that. I visualize and meditate in the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm. Right. As you're sharing, what I'm noticing is that you work a lot into your self-image, and you have a blog in your page where you actually talk about a few different steps to help people to rebuild that self-image. Some of the pointers you mentioned was to be grateful. What, in essence, how to be grateful?
Yeah, I think gratitude is a wonderful way to start the day. And I've got a recording on that. That so people can really plug into that and work on a feeling of gratitude, because as soon as you start to focus on that, you change your state, you change your mental state, and the feeling that you've got will change, and you start to appreciate the world and life. And and it takes you out of your worries, out of your cares. You come from a place of being grateful and, thankful for, just simple things in life. Just waking up in the morning and being able to breathe clean air and, being healthy, being happy, or at least working towards that, So think of, gratitude. A good one to start the day with is to just, for 5 minutes before you fully wake up, just lay there and think about, the people in the world that love you and the people that you love. Just have a feeling of gratitude for that. I've got some beautiful people around me that I love dearly, and they love me, and we have lovely relationships. And, I really appreciate that now at this point in my life, because I didn't have that when I was young. So just having gratitude for some simple things in life, and, that really sets your day up, and it can really make you feel good, and it anchors you. It's like a really good anchor.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a lovely one.
Totally. I mean, when you said, being grateful for the simple things, I think that's fantastic to, emphasize that, because a lot of the people, some people go like, I have nothing to be grateful for, when they're so caught up in the drama or going through a really rough time.
Yeah.
There's always something to be grateful for, and you said something important. You said, focus on the people that love me and that I love. There's always somebody, right?
There's always what, sorry?
Always somebody.
Yeah.
So fantastic, great.
Yeah.
So great for that. Yeah. Something else that you mentioned was to stop the negative talk. That's something that is very common. Anything you can share on that?
Yeah, I think the negative talk is often based in fear. It's got its roots in fear, hasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, for me, I had a lot of that when I was young, because I was told that over and over again, repeatedly. And I worked a lot on getting over that. So again, that comes from within. When you go inside yourself and you stop the mental chatter, you stop the negativity and the fear and the anxiety and the worry. And, if you think, most things that you worry about and most things you fear never actually manifest anyway, so, you figure it's not worth worrying about most of the time. And it's something that you need to practice. You do need to practice. I mean, I still get caught up in it. Sometimes I'm off guard and I'm getting into a little worry thing. Something's happened, and you can find yourself going there. But I never stay in it for long. Nowadays I've learned to cut that off. If it starts to get into something big, then I'll meditate. I'll go inside, and I will focus on gratitude. I'll focus on love. And if I'm fearful about one of my sons doing something, they get traveling or whatever, I will, instead of worrying about it, I will go inside and visualize them surrounded by a white light and protected, and feel a connection from my heart to theirs. And I always find when I do things like that, it totally changes the feeling I've got. When I come back out of it, I'm not worrying anymore. I feel like I've done something. I've projected an energy out there that's keeping them safe. And it does work. It really does. All of the, they've proven scientifically that our mental thought processes and our emotions can affect external matter. We can affect atoms and molecules that are external from us. So the mental state and the feelings that you create inside are so important. And it's so important to work on them regularly, to stay in a positive state, because you are affecting the world around you and the way that the world responds to you.
Great. There was an aha moment when you mentioned that not always what we're worrying about actually happens in that way. So we're worrying about something and it's not really going to happen that way always, right? So that's an aha moment. We worry so much thinking that that's actually what's going to happen, and that creates even more worry, right?
Yeah.
Recognize that things are not just going to happen in that direction. They totally have a different direction, and we can be more positive towards, in creating a much better and creative direction rather than being so much worried and caught up in the fear.
Yeah, and always if you get into that cycle of worry and fear and anxiety, just stop it. It's the 10% of your mind above the surface. If you think of an iceberg, 90% of it is below the surface. When you're in that anxiety state, just drop into that 90%. It's where our genius lies. It's where our creativity lies.
Mm-hmm.
And when you go into that, the world's a different place. It's what saved me. It's what kept me away from jail, if you like. I was mixing with kids who ended up in jail, long term. And, I saved myself because of the ability to go into that unconscious part of myself, reprogram a lot of the dysfunction, change the way I responded to the world, change the way the world responded to me. And, it's something that it's something that's worth working on all the time. So as soon as you get into a state of worry, anxiety, just meditate. Even if it's for 5 minutes, you'll feel different when you come out of it. And I've got a number of resources on my website and, recordings that I've done that you can learn. It's very easy to learn it nowadays. There's 1,000,001 resources. You could go onto YouTube and watch videos to learn how to meditate. Nowadays, everything's out there. So there's really no excuses. If you want to empower yourself and create a better life for yourself, it all comes from within you, and you can really change the way you feel about the world and you feel about yourself from within. And it's that thing. And I always use the analogy that if you wanted to create a super fit, healthy body, you'd go to the gym, work out 3 or 4 times a week, play plenty of sports, you'd eat healthily. And it's the same with the mind. If you want to create a really strong, positive mind, you need to be doing this work. Meditative, mindfulness, hypnosis, it's all there. It's all there for us. And it's a really enjoyable journey. It's far more pleasant than working out in the gym 4 times a week. That to me is hard work. That's discipline.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's actually one of, another point that you mentioned on your article, which is taking care of your body. People don't really see the importance of that, but it's so meaningful, right? If you're not well with yourself, how can you be well?
Mind, body, spirit. We are, and you need to be healthy in all of those departments. And, for me, when I was young, I was, smoking heavily. I used to drink. I had hepatitis when I was young because I drank so much. I was 17. I woke up one day, my skin had turned yellow. So I really abused my body. Fortunately, I recovered from it, and I was young enough to heal, because I did a lot of damage when I was young, but I was, I came through it. And, now I'm 54 and I play tennis, with guys 30 years younger than me. And I love keeping fit and healthy. I'm as fit as I've ever been. And I love that. I enjoy the journey. I enjoy the whole holistic journey. I spent so much time kind of getting out of it and being bad that I kind of knew the depths, those depths. I saw a lot of those depths when you go really low. So for me now, it's like I'm the opposite end of that spectrum, and I love it. And I love pushing as far as I can the other way. Now, for me, being clear and healthy and feeling bright in my mind and body, I really enjoy that. And, I that's what and I'm good. I'm a good teacher to others because I've been on that journey. I've been so messed up and clear now, and I continue. Like I said to you, it's an ongoing process. I want to feel healthier. I want to feel fitter. I want to feel, clearer. I want to work on my shadow more. And I'll be doing that when I'm 90, because it's, I believe once we move on and check out of this world, it's a progression. We don't die. The spirit doesn't die. We live on, we evolve. And if we've got that momentum, as in this world, I'm sure it makes perfect sense to me that we'd carry that on.
Totally. Plus it's enriching, right? I mean, it's really enriching to know that you're not only healing yourself, but all of a sudden you start seeing the ripple effects, people around you and your relationships and how things unfold in a better way.
Yeah. I mean, I get, my recordings, I get, I read emails every day and messages, literally, 30, 40, 50 messages a day, and, you know, posts on sites where people say that they're having life-changing experiences using my recordings. And I've read something just recently. There's been a little theme where they say there's something in my voice that makes them want to change. They believe it when they hear it, and they're in the trance state. And when I record, I kind of go, I meditate myself. I get into an altered state of consciousness. And I found the sound of my voice actually changes because I'm in my body. You know, at the moment I'm talking very much from my throat. But when I record, I get into my body and I'm kind of projecting from a different place. And so that comes across in the recordings, and people pick up on that, and there's something in there that gives them the opportunity to change and to move forward. I think they start to believe in themselves. They can really change, because I went on that journey myself, and we're able to do that. So maybe I had to do that to make recordings. You know, maybe that's the way it's panned out. And, you know, I don't want to do that in my next life. I don't want to go through that again. But in this life, if that's the purpose, then I'll take that.
You mentioned something really nice just now, that I think it's a lot of the work that we do, Glenn, which is, you know, really helping ourselves and helping other people to come back to the body, because we're not really in the body so much. You know, we're so unembodied. We don't feel much. We're like too out, or we're just segmented in just certain areas.
Yeah.
That you said that, you know, when you're recording, you really come back to the body, so that it's a profound experience rather than just one segmented area, as you said, just my throat. Yeah,
that's it. And I think, you know, I know that when I was younger, my energy was very scattered. You know, even when I listen to recordings, you know, when I was a kid, I hear my voice was totally different. And I was scattered. You know, I think if, you know, you could see energetically, it wouldn't have looked good. You know, I would have been a little bit all over the place, and, you know, I was very scattered. But, you know, over the years, as I've got healthier, and as I've worked on myself and felt more grounded and clearer, you know, I feel more solid on a spiritual level. You know, I feel more grounded, but more open and more conscious. You know, I have a consciousness now that I didn't have 20 years ago, and I see the world in a different way, and it's a level of consciousness that, you know, great masters in India have got levels of consciousness that we can't understand. You know, and because when you're unconscious, you can only experience the world from that low vibration, you know, which I was experiencing all those years ago. But as you work on yourself and you get clearer, your vibration changes and your consciousness changes, and it becomes expansive. And, you know, you start to feel more creative, more inspired, because you're tuning in to higher vibrational things in the universe. You know, that cosmic pool of energy that's there. It's always there. But as you get clearer, you can plug into that more easily. And that's really such an amazing benefit, you know, of that comes from working on yourself. It's one of the really, you know, amazing things. And, you know, I'm one of the things I'm really passionate about is not eating animals. You know, I don't buy into that. I don't buy into it. I think to really raise your consciousness, you have to be vegan. And you know, I buy into that. It's part of the journey. It's been my journey. It's totally worked for me. You know, I know everyone's on a different path, but for me, that helped me get really clear as well. You know.
Well, thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Another point that you had already touched that a lot, it's you know, letting go of negative influences. And that's really hard for many people.
Yeah. In terms of other people, addictions, that kind of thing, you know, that can be, again, you know, when I look back at my teenage years and early 20s, I had a lot of addictions, you know, and I was never addicted to drugs. You know, I did do every kind of drug. You know, I smoked, I drank heavily, I gambled, you know, I womanized, and all of those addictions just kept me low down. That vibration, my vibration was so low because I was plugged into all those low vibrational base things and habits, you know. And the thing that's come as I've worked on myself more and more, I've been able to shed a lot of that. You know, I'm not drawn to those things anymore. I don't resonate with them. You know, now and again they come back and, you know, they wink at me. You know, they can be seductive, but again, it's, you know, it's a work in progress. I continue to move forward and shed more and more of those old things that kept me, you know, in that low vibrational frequency. And the more you do that, the more you know, you feel driven to raise your consciousness, to clear baggage, to clear the shadow, because you realize there's an absolute nectar. There's a nectar there in Krishna consciousness. When they chant and they really get deep into it, they experience what they call nectar. Mm-hmm. And it's that connection with the divine. And my oldest son's into it. And he said, Dad, he said, I've been there. He said, I've touched and tasted it. He said, you know, he said, it's better than any drug. It's better than any sex. It's beautiful. And he said, you know, you don't want any material thing when you're in that space. He said, because it's so pure. And this is my son now. He's teaching me. You know, he's 29, coming up to 30 this year, and he's teaching me. And I've told him that this year. I said, you know, all his life I've taught him, but now he's teaching me things, you know, because he's on a spiritual journey that's really moving quickly. And yeah, that's it. You know, to really aspire for those things and to put aside, you know, self-gratification, you know, and physical desire, personal gratification, you know, for something called delayed gratification. You know, in psychology, there's a term called delayed gratification, and that's putting off a short-term gain for a longer-term reward. Mm-hmm. Working on yourself, meditating, getting fit and healthy, clearing your shadow, raising your vibration, you know, will take you into a different world. You know, you'll still be in the world with other people and experiencing it the same as we do, because we're all 3D flesh and blood, but you will be experiencing life in a different way. And it's nectar. It's really sweet and it tastes so good. And it's pure. It's pure. You don't get any hang-ups from it. No guilt. It's beautiful, you know. And I've yeah, that's my journey. You know, that's the path I'm on. And you know, there's a long road ahead, you know, for me, a long road, you know. And you know, I've met some very knowledgeable, wise people who've been on that journey, but even those guys, you know, are respected. And you know, I've never met anyone who's really, you know, I guess Jesus and Buddha were the physical embodiment of people at the, you know, have attained that purity and that wisdom. And we're a work in progress. We're on the path, you know, and all at different places. But that's it, you know, aim for that, aim high, because it's, you know, there's a beautiful reward, a beautiful place that's waiting for us all. Yeah.
So the more work we do ourselves, the more inner work we do, then all these other things start shedding out, like, you know, the healthy relationships, the negative influences. So somehow it becomes effortless, I'm assuming, right?
It becomes like I say, it's tastes really sweet. Mm-hmm. You know, when you start to have lovely relationships around you, you know, and you've got people that love and care about you and respect you, and you respect them, and it's a real deep, you know, they're authentic relationships as well. You know, you really love and care about them, and they do you, and there's no games, there's no hidden agenda. You know, when I experienced ayahuasca, that was one thing that really hit me, that the truth of every relationship I had was laid out in front of me. And I saw things that I kind of knew, I sort of knew, but it was laid out really clearly. And it kind of made me realize that we all play games, wear different hats for different people. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to fall into that. Mm-hmm. And you know, it made me realize that we don't need to be that. If you work on yourself and you work on your own authenticity, you don't have to play those games. You know, you can just be content with the way you are, content with the world, and not expect anyone from not ask or expect anything from anyone. You know, sometimes that's the trap people fall into. You know, somebody's, you know, a parent or a brother or sister or partner, you know, is not what you want them to be. They drive you crazy, so you expect them to change. But unless they're on the path, or unless they've got some kind of enlightenment going on, they're not. They're going to stay as they are. And all you can do is send them love and compassion and, you know, hope that they find their way out the woods, and, you know, they find enlightenment, and, you know, they move forward. But if they don't, you just got to love them and let them go, and, you know, just work on your own journey. You know, that's all we can really change. But you find that when you do that, like I said, the world around you change, and your relationships change. They become more authentic. They're so much more authentic, and that's the thing that I love. You know, and yeah, I learned a lot in the ayahuasca journeys that I did about that, about relationships. It was so revealing.
I'm really touched, and I'm smiling a little when you talk about ayahuasca. I'm a medicine man, and I've been doing medicine for several years. You know, it's part of my tradition, it's my culture. You know,
Oh, wow.
Colombian. So I totally get what you're talking about, and it's been the same experience for myself.
Yeah.
So
Do you run ceremonies yourself?
I do run ceremonies for the last year and a half. I've been doing ceremonies for 7 years, my practices.
Yeah.
Medicine and shamanic practices, it's been my license maybe 12, 13. So
yeah, well, it's really kind of penetrated the West now, because, you know, the West is so in need of it. You know, people are so in need of transformation and change. But I experienced it for the first time. I was going to come to Peru for the first time because I was so drawn to it. You know, it called me, and but I found a guy in the UK that was running ceremonies not too far from me, and he'd spent time in Peru, and the medicine that he got from South America was really strong. It was really powerful. I did a ceremony 6 months ago here in Marbella, of all places, in Spain. And it was a commercial setup. There were like 20 people in the room, and they'd flown a guy over from South America, but he seemed a bit bored. You know, he sung a few Icaros, but he wasn't heart and soul into it. So I'm glad that wasn't my first experience. You know, I'd done a number before, and some of the commercial ones that are springing up are not the real deal. You know, they're a little bit set up as a money-making things, which again, you know, it's Maya, isn't it? It's, you know, it's not authentic. You know, and the one thing that you get from ayahuasca is authenticity. And so I never understand how people miss that when they're actually doing the work.
You know, it's become an industry as well. So like any industry has, you know, good things, bad things, confusing things. It's got a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
But things that you mentioned, you know, which I think is the most fantastic thing, and something that I really take out of, you know, our conversation today, is to become authentic, you know, to really be there, and, you know, moving into relationships with people with no agendas, hidden agendas, you know,
Yeah.
that really pollutes everything. You know,
Yeah.
conscious about what you bring into a relationship.
Yeah. Well, you know, the relationship I've been in for the last 6 years with my partner, you know, we're both therapists. She's a hypnotherapist, and so am I. And we came into it, you know, with issues between each other, you know, and it wasn't all plain sailing, you know, but when things came up between us, we kind of recognized that there were things, you know, it wasn't, you know, you blame in an argument, in a relationship, it's so easy to blame the other person. But we recognized that we really needed to clear ourselves before we could bring about harmony. And it was not about, you've done this wrong, I've done this wrong. It was about us, you know, the shadow part of ourselves was being thrown up in the relationship, in rows and, you know, problems that we had. And it made us look deeper in. So sometimes the most challenging relationships are the potential for the greatest growth and healing.
Oh, I like that.
And yeah, and that was certainly been the case, because we've both grown a lot in this relationship and healed a lot of things within us. And you know, we still have our moments. It's not all harmony, and we're not, you know, we're not in a Hollywood film at the end, you know. It's an ongoing process, you know. Things still come up, but we know now to like look what happened there, you know, what was that, why did we get to that point, you know, and we look at it and change things within ourselves. So, and I find that each time now we're peeling away another layer, and it gets easier, the journey's getting easier, and you know, and it's cool. But now we've got 2 little babies, so that's a whole different kettle of
Glenn, it's been a pleasure having you here today. We're coming to an end.
Okay.
I'd like you to introduce your gift. I know you have something for our audience to help them come back to themselves.
Okay, well, I've got a recording that I'm giving away, and there's a free MP3 download link where you can click on the link and just download the MP3. And the title's called Mindfulness Meditation for Releasing Anxiety. And it's kind of a nice, gentle 25-minute recording. It's a good sample of my work. And I suggest that when people get the MP3, they put on headphones, make 25 minutes, close the curtains, turn the phones off, and just allow yourself to go into this state of mindfulness and just go really deep with it and enjoy it, because there's some lovely affirmations and positive phrases on there. So yeah, that's my gift, and I hope your listeners enjoy it.
Alrighty, Glenn. Thank you so much. It has been a pleasure having you here. Lovely talking to you.
Thank you, brother.
Appreciate it. Remember, friends, we have another couple interviews tomorrow coming up, so please watch them. And also remember to get Glenn's free gift, so click the link below. Thank you so much.